James's mind raced with thoughts as he processed the news. Orga meeting with her former team wasn't unexpected, but it certainly heightened his concern. He knew that Wilson was in love with Orga. Now that Orga isn't with me anymore, any man closer to Orga was a threat to him. He swiftly made his way to the entrance of the building where his car was waiting, his expression unreadable. As he stepped into the car, his demeanor was cold and focused. "Take me to the restaurant where Orga is meeting her team," he instructed Nick, his tone leaving no room for argument. Nick sat beside him, his own thoughts swirling with possibilities. "Sir, how do you want to approach this?" James glanced at Nick briefly, his jaw clenched with determination. "We need to assess the situation first. We'll keep our presence discreet. I don't want Orga to suspect anything." Nick nodded in agreement, his mind already calculating the best course of action. "Understood, sir." In the restaurant, the team was done eating. As the restaurant was part of the club, they decided to go to the club to enjoy it like in the old days. Orga's phone had been ringing for a long time, but because of the loud music and lively chatter in the club, she hadn't noticed the missed calls. Frank had been calling because he had something important to tell her. Since he couldn't reach her, he had decided to call Maggie. Maggie was home watching the news. She had decided to wait until Orga came home. They had unfinished business to talk about. Her phone started ringing. She was lying on the sofa, and her phone was on the table. She was hesitant to pick it up. She debated whether to answer it or not. Finally, she woke up. Taking her phone up, she saw that it was Frank's number. Maggie hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with questions about why Frank would be calling her in the middle of the night. Despite her reservations, she decided to answer the call, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Hello, Frank?" Maggie's voice was cautious but steady. "What a surprise." "Maggie, thank goodness you picked up." Frank's voice sounded urgent with a hint of concern lacing his words. "I've been trying to reach Orga, but she's not answering her phone. Can you tell her I want to talk to her so she can pick up her phone?" Maggie's brows furrowed in confusion. "No, she's not here. She left a while ago. She said she was meeting with her former team from Hawkins Corporation for dinner." "Why? What's wrong?" There was a brief pause at the other end of the line before Frank spoke again, his voice tense. "Maggie, it's okay. It's just that I wanted to tell her something. It can wait." "Okay, maybe she will call when she's not busy," Maggie said with a tired voice. Before Frank could hang up, he asked, "Do you know the name of the place where they're meeting?" Maggie thought for a moment before responding. "She mentioned something about a restaurant. I don't have the exact name, but it's a place they used to frequent when they were working together." Frank's instinct kicked in, and he called his capable secretary. "You have 5 minutes to find out where Miss Thompson is having dinner with her former team." "Yes, sir." The secretary quickly went to work, using her resources to find out the location of the restaurant where Orga was. In just a few minutes, she had the information ready. "Sir, Miss Thompson is currently dining with her former team at a restaurant called The Oasis." Frank's mind raced as he processed the information. "Thank you," he said quickly before ending the call. "Prepare a car. I am coming down." Orga and the whole team were dancing and drinking in the club. Orga's tolerance for alcohol was so low. She was drunk and decided to go to the bathroom to freshen up. As she made her way through the crowded club, a few men were stunned by her beauty. One man decided to follow her and cling to her. After all, she was drunk. The man had thought that he had seen an angel, and he was planning to use her when she was still alone in the bathroom. Orga stumbled slightly as she made her way through the throngs of people in the club, the loud music pounding in her ears. Her mind felt foggy from the alcohol, but she was determined to freshen up before returning to the dance floor. Unbeknownst to her, a man had been watching her from afar, drawn in by her beauty and her slightly unsteady gait. As Orga entered the dimly lit hallway leading to the bathroom, she felt someone bump into her from behind. Turning slightly, she saw a man, his features blurred by the dim lighting and her intoxicated state. Before she could react, he wrapped an arm around her waist, steadying her. "Hey there, beautiful." The man slurred slightly, his breath reeking of alcohol. "You look like you could use some company." Orga's senses were dulled by the alcohol, but a flicker of unease passed through her as she realized she was alone with the stranger. She tried to push him away gently, her voice wavering slightly. "I'm fine. Thank you. I just need to use the bathroom." But the man seemed undeterred, his grip tightening around her waist. "Come on, sweetheart. Don't be shy. Let's have some fun together," he said, his words dripping with a predatory edge. Orga's heart began to race as she realized the danger she was in. Panic surged through her, sobering her up slightly as adrenaline flooded her system. With a burst of strength, she managed to break free from his grasp, stumbling backward in her haste to get away. But she was too weak to fight with him. "I said, I'm fine," she exclaimed, her voice shaking with fear as she turned and hurried towards the bathroom, the man's laughter echoing behind her. He caught her before she could take another step. Pushing her into the ladies' bathroom, he started undressing her. Orga's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the man's hands on her, panic rising within her like a tidal wave. She struggled against him, desperately trying to break free, but his grip was strong, and her movements were sluggish from the alcohol. Right at that moment, the man felt a punch on him. It felt like a hammer that had hit him. He fell to the ground but wasn't ready to see who the person was. Orga couldn't see the person who saved her well since she was dizzy, so she opened her mouth to say something. In a low and weak voice, she said, "Thank you." After saying those words, she closed her eyes and fell into his arms. James was angry, to the extent that even his breath became a little dry. Nick approached him with worry. "Sir, is Orga okay? Make sure this man regrets touching my woman. Make sure he's afraid of using women like this for the rest of his life." After that, he picked Orga up and went out. Outside the restaurant, Frank's car had just arrived. He got out of the car with an imposing aura. Just looking at him, he's a man who was born to lead and control. He was here for Orga, only for her. Frank's eyes scanned the area, his gaze sharp as he took in the lively atmosphere at the club. He stepped towards the entrance, but before he could enter, he quickly spotted James emerging from the club, carrying a woman in his arms. Something stirred within Frank as he recognized the woman as Orga. His concern deepened, and he quickened his pace toward them. "Hey, you," Frank called out, his voice commanding attention. "What happened? What right do you have to carry my woman? Give her to me now." James's expression was tight with fury as he looked at Frank, his grip on Orga tightening protectively. "She was attacked," he said through gritted teeth, his tone brooking no argument. "But she's safe now, with me. And mind your words, you might not know who you are talking to." Frank sneered. "Of course I know you. You are James Hawkins. Is that enough, or shall I continue? You're the scumbag who broke a woman's heart. Now you're hunting her back like a mad lion? Come on, man. You're just an ex. I can even expand it for you to an expired. Maybe you're the one who doesn't know who you're talking to. I am her man now. As for other information, you know that because I remember receiving your invitation to the party. Well, you consider yourself mighty here, but that's because I am not from your city. I am 10 times mightier than you." James was taken aback, his jaw clenched and his eyes narrowing at Frank's words. He shifted his stance, his grip on Orga tightening protectively. He hadn't recognized Frank. This was his first time seeing him face to face. Only after Frank removed his cap did James realize it was indeed him. He approached and gave her to him, not because he feared him, but because he was targeting him for the investment. He couldn't fight him yet. He needed him, and couldn't afford to anger him yet. "Take care of her." Frank's eyes narrowed in concern and anger. "Of course I will. She's my girlfriend." "Is she hurt?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. James shook his head, his jaw clenched. Physically, she seems okay. I reached there in time. She only needs rest. She's drunk. His voice trailed off, his gaze softening as he looked down at Orga, who lay unconscious in Frank's arms. Before Frank could turn to leave, he said one last word. I know you're the best in this city, James. I trust your ability to handle things. You have more resources here than I do. Teach that man a big lesson. James nodded, his grip on Orga tightening protectively as he glanced back at Frank with a determined look. I will. Believe me, he replied, his voice carrying a steely resolve. He kept quiet, talking to himself inside. No one lays a hand on what's mine and gets away with it. Even you, Frank. I am waiting until you go back to your city. I will make Orga come back to me by way of water or blood. She was once mine. She will be mine again. Frank gave James one protective glance, turned back, and headed towards his car, carefully laying Orga in the back seat before sliding into the seat next to her. He looked at Sarah and said, What are you waiting for? Drive. To where, sir? Sarah asked. But when she saw that he didn't answer, she cleared her question. I mean, are we going to the hotel or to Orga's place? Frank's gaze remained fixed on Orga, concern etched on his face. To her home, please, he replied softly, his voice laced with worry. She needs rest, and I want to make sure she's comfortable and safe. And I don't want Maggie to worry too much. Sarah nodded. She started the car and carefully drove off. As they drove, Frank looked at Orga's sleeping face and murmured, Why drink when you can't handle it? He couldn't shake off the feeling of anger towards whoever had attacked Orga, but he pushed it aside for now, focusing on getting her the care she needed. When they arrived at her apartment, Frank swiftly got out of the car and opened the back door, gently lifting Orga into his arms. Sarah followed closely behind, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. When Maggie opened the door, she was stunned as she widened the entrance door for Frank to enter. Emma, she knows her alcohol tolerance. Why did she drink this much? I should have gone with her. Frank carried Orga into the apartment, his expression tense with worry. I wish I knew, Maggie, he said softly, his voice filled with concern. But what matters now is making sure she's okay. Maggie nodded, her own worry evident as she stepped aside to let Frank pass. Put her in her room. I'll get some water and a cold towel, she said quickly, disappearing into the kitchen. Frank carefully laid Orga down on her bed, adjusting the pillows to make her more comfortable. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart heavy with concern. I am so sorry I wasn't there on time. But I'm here now, Orga, he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. You're safe now. As Maggie returned with the water and towel, she handed them to Frank, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you for bringing her back, Frank, she said softly. I don't know what I would have done if something happened to her. Frank nodded, his gaze never leaving Orga's face. She means everything to me, Maggie. I'll always protect her, he replied firmly, his voice filled with determination. Frank and Maggie tended to Orga, making sure she was comfortable and safe. They left the room. Frank chose to go back to the hotel. Thank you again, Frank, Maggie said, her voice gentle yet determined. You should get some rest, Frank. You've had a long night too. Frank nodded reluctantly. All right, but call me if Orga wakes up. I have something to tell her, he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Maggie smiled gratefully. I will, I promise, she assured him. Frank made his way out of the apartment, entered the car, and drove back to the hotel. Back at the club, James watched Frank's departure with his heart filled with rage. He thought he would use this incident to gain Orga's empathy and forgiveness. But now all the credit will go to Frank. At least I was able to save her. That's what matters first, he said before going back into the club's back room, where he had kept that man. He had to teach him a lesson. Nick, on seeing his boss approach, asked, "Sir, what do you want me to do with this man? We gave him a few beatings." Nick's voice was low, matching the seriousness of the situation. James paused for a moment, his thoughts racing. "Take him to the authorities to take care of him. Make sure he faces the consequences of his actions," he said finally, his tone firm. "I don't want his useless blood on my hands." Nick nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll take care of it, sir."